Hey everyone! So in this video I want to talk about how we can start to come off autopilot. Now for me this used to be a really big thing in my eating disorder because I would do so many of my eating disorder behaviours on autopilot. Like it became so ingrained that I didn't really have to think about them. It's like if something happened or maybe I did something and that conjured up an uncomfortable feeling for me, I would then do a kind of behavior as a reaction to that, and it would all happen really fast, kind of, within milliseconds. It would all have been done, and that really wasn't conscious. I think a lot of the time, like I was aware that I was doing it, but it didn't feel like I had any say. It didn't feel like I had any control necessarily over what I was doing. It just felt like a kind of urge, maybe, to do a certain thing to kind of fix that feeling that I was experiencing. And this is really common. We're all human, and as humans, we don't really like discomfort. We don't really like, experiencing feelings that are, not on our, top favourites, those kind of feelings that we enjoy feeling. So when those more uncomfortable feelings come along, often we don't know how to deal with them, or we just want to numb them or run away from them or kind of fix them. And our mind is really good at coming up with ways of doing that. It's a really good kind of problem solver, even when the problem actually isn't really a problem at all. So if you've watched some of our videos before, you'll have heard me talk many times about how, we don't need to fix our feelings, and that it's all okay. It's all safe to feel when we know what we're actually dealing with. So that's kind of what I mean about not having to actually solve a problem, because it's not a problem in the first place. So going back to autopilot mode, I have a prop. So this is what it really felt like for me a lot of the time. So I would have a thought. This would result in a feeling, and then I would act on it. So I would do, whatever that might have been to try and fix that feeling. So, as an example, the thought might be, oh, I really shouldn't have done that. And then the feeling as a result of that might be worry or guilt, maybe. And then that action, that autopilot action, might be something that I've done. It's kind of almost programmed in my head as, okay, guilt and worry, do this thing. And so that might be, back with my eating disorder, it might be, then going and avoiding eating certain things or restricting, as an example. So I'll show you that again. You may be able to relate to that sequence. And again, that's really common. And like I said a minute ago, it can happen really quickly without us even really thinking about it. So the reason I wanted to share that with you is because what I have found amazingly helpful is, so that's the original. If we flip this over, you can see that feeling, and then a space, and then the action. So what I find amazingly helpful is starting to create that space between the feeling and the action, because like I said, it all happens very quickly and it feels like we haven't really got any control over that. So when we start to firstly notice what's actually going on, so once we can actually start to actually identify when this sequence starts to crop up. When do we feel like we're acting on autopilot? I think that's a really important first step, because we can't change anything or do anything if we don't know what we're actually dealing with. So first thing is starting to identify when that crops up. And then, and I've probably talked about this before as well, but taking a pause. This might be 2 seconds, it might be 1 second, but when we consciously add in that pause, it interrupts that cycle. It means that actually we're coming off autopilot. It means that we're becoming conscious. And then when we're conscious, it means that we can actually check in with our true self. We can check in with our gut feeling, our intuition. And then in that space, we can actually decide whether or not anything needs to be done. And, reflecting on so many of my eating disorder behaviors, they weren't needed ultimately. I didn't actually need to fix those feelings. And once I started to see all those unhelpful thoughts for what they were, and I began to change my relationship with them, and I was able to let them go a whole lot easier and quicker, that cycle, that thought, feeling, action cycle in the kind of eating disorder context just stopped serving a purpose, really. And I think that's, for me anyway, that was a real, and still is a real, game changer, because we can be so reactive. And again, that's kind of just human, and I think life is, it's fast paced, it seems, these days. So when we're in that mode, it's like we're reacting. Whereas when we create that bit of space and we become conscious in that moment, we go from reacting to responding. And that, I feel, is where there's so much power, because like I said, it's coming off autopilot, and it's allowing ourselves a moment to kind of collect ourselves and to start to reconnect to that part of us that actually knows what it wants or knows what it doesn't want to do, which is often, doing those reactive behaviors that we might be doing for a while. So I just wanted to share that, because it's a bit more practical than the kind of stuff that I usually share, but it's been so helpful for me, and so I just wanted to share that and just see what you think. And this applies to everyone. It applies to whatever, I mean, if you're watching this and you have an eating disorder, whatever eating disorder that might be, or if you don't have an eating disorder, this is universal. And I think that's why there's so much power in it, and yet it's so simple, which is another reason why I love it so much. So just kind of sit with that and see what you think. And this isn't an action plan or anything like that. It's just some thoughts for you to maybe reflect on, and just see if you connect with it, see if you can relate at all, and even just starting to notice when, if and where that sequence might be cropping up for you. So I hope you found this helpful, and feel free to drop a comment or get in touch. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.